All right, now you know where AI is going to fit inside your organization, how it's going to be used to solve problems. Let's talk about how we actually move towards defining where AI belongs in your process. So, what we're doing right now is we're going to talk about the AI workflow. Now, AI workflow is another term that just gets thrown out there. So, I have a definition for you here. An AI workflow is the process of the work getting done with AI. This is kind of like the boring part of AI, right? We're really talking about process optimization with AI. So your AI workflow shows how AI is used to complete part or all of a task, right? And defines how the output is reviewed. We include that in review part because that is critical when we are thinking about work getting done and the quality of work that is getting done. Just because AI doesn't mean it's going to be quality. So we need to talk about the review process as well. So the exercise that you're looking at right here is to describe the workflow before and after AI is introduced. So when I say workflow, I just mean describe the process. So how is the work done today? So if we look at before, and we are using my example of onboarding new employees, before, this is what the process looks like, okay? I'm not going to read through all of it, but you can see you want it to be step by step. And it can be very, kind of informal. You can make I know I work with teams that make flow charts, right? Because it gets more complicated. It really depends on the complexity of the task that you are trying to turn into an AI workflow. But what you want, the outcome of this is a document that describes what work is being done. Because as you start to move towards an AI pilot, you're also going to have to talk about what systems this workflow uses, what data it uses, and so on. That's beyond the scope of this small, short course right here. But the idea here is to get this down on paper because a lot of times this work just lives in our head. Okay. So you want to describe how the work is being done today. Then you want to describe if you are redesigning this workflow with AI, what does it look like afterwards? Okay. You want your ideal here. Now, is your ideal going to be the final result? Not necessarily, but you want to be specific step by step about what your ideal looks like, not just we're going to use an AI assistant to onboard people. Great. What does that look like? Okay. So in this case, I have described here you can pause and read this if you'd like. I have described what the assistant will do, how it behaves, what the goals are, what it does along the way, and then also the review process. The review process here is that a team member spot checks answers on a Slack AI assistant monthly. With AI assistants, you can't look at every single answer, right? So you have to make plans to spot check it bi-weekly, monthly, and so on. You always want to be making sure that these models are giving correct answers, right? You need what's called a fallback. So if the answers aren't correct, what happens, right? Well, in this case, new hires are encouraged to flag report any responses that seem incorrect. You could get even more specific and say flag answers and responses that seem incorrect and contact X department or you, the manager, something like that, right? That is how we define the process. So you need to be thinking about what is the process before AI, what is the process after AI. And it's okay if this is ideal, but what matters is the step by step and the details in here. Because if you are building this on your own, or if you're building this in collaboration with another team, you're going to need this information, right? The more detailed you can be, the more prepared you are, and the more you reduce assumptions around what you are building and what you are trying to accomplish. I say this as someone whose job for years was to get in the room and talk to people about what they're actually building. And I would find out with AI, people had so many different assumptions at what people were building. So this is the work that matters. This is why you're doing this, and this is how you set yourself up so that way your AI pilot later down the line does not fail. You reduce the likelihood that it's going to fail. So after you do that, you are then going to go and define what good looks like. This is so we avoid AI work slop. What does good look like when done with AI? Okay, is it the same as a human output? Is it different? This is where, in my example, I have defined that I need it to be accurate. You will never get 100% accuracy. Okay. So yes, we all want accurate, but just know it's never going to be 100%. There's ways to reduce it. I would look at what is the risk if it's not accurate. Okay. Because in high risk situations, it's important to pay close attention to accuracy and think about what is the impact if AI doesn't get it right. Because that's going to determine how you design the solution. Now that is out of scope of this video, but something to think about right there. I want my responses to be concise to the point. I don't want them to read a wall of text, right? That's going to overwhelm. I want links to supporting materials. I want responses that should be personalized to the role of the person onboarding, okay? And it should always tag a person. The AI assistant should tag a person who the new employee can follow up with so the new employee feels supported by people as well. Okay, so yes, we're using AI, but I want them, they're new. We don't want them to feel like they're on their own. So I want my responses to also include like here's someone you can ask with further questions and tagging them. Okay, so this is what it looks like to define your AI workflow, getting specific. What does good look like? What is the job to be done? Now, that is how you prepare and find your team's first AI use cases. And you can see it's a lot of steps, but this document is what's going to keep you organized through the process. Okay. When there's hiccups, when things don't go according to plan, when you need to communicate across stakeholders, this is the document that is going to keep you on track. Now, next steps here. Of course, we are at the end, but I built a little tool for you to help you move forward. So I have built the AI launch planner, pilot launch planner. And basically what it does is it takes you through a bunch of questions. Some of them are similar to what we've just answered on this first page, but it helps you thinking about things like data, measurement, who the pilot group is that you're going to test with, and so on. So when you fill this out, you will get a checklist and it's going to go over your answers and keep it all in a nice little place right here. And then it's going to give you a checklist of things to consider before you start. So before you start, during the pilot, and when you're ready to scale, you can always download that checklist as well. So all of our videos here in the Managing AI Lab come with worksheets and tools and prompt templates to help you really take what you're learning and put them into practice, right? Test with them, try things out with your team. So that's exactly what you're getting here. This is an AI tool that was built with Claude using Claude artifacts. And if that's something that you're interested in, we've got a video on that too. So, explore what your options are with AI, and remember that this is a learning journey. When you are launching your first pilot, when you're learning how to integrate AI into your team processes, this takes time. Okay, and sometimes the result will surprise you, both good and bad. So keep an open mind, be experimental, keep an open dialogue about this process with your team and your stakeholders as well, especially with leadership. Educate them on what you are learning, what works, what doesn't, and so on. So there you have it. This is your final video in this free course. Of course, check out the next steps where you'll find some additional data and resources to help you as you move forward. Good luck, and hope to see you in another session in the future.